everybody. So this is the Hallmarkies podcast, and we are so excited today. I'm Rachel, and Amber is actually not here today. She wasn't able to make it, but we have a special guest on our podcast, and is a film critic extraordinaire and podcaster. We have Alonso Duralde. It's very exciting.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
Thank you so much. What we like to do is ask our guests to introduce themselves and explain a little bit about how you got to where you're at as far as your career, and just a little introduction.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a long and winding road, but I'm a lifelong kind of movie obsessive, I guess. I started writing movie reviews, for my high school paper and my college paper, and pretty much since college, I have been a film critic and or a film festival programmer. So those are sort of my two main areas. And then I've been podcasting for about the last 7 or 8 years. So there's that as well. So right now people can find me at thewrap.com, THEWRAP, where I'm the film reviews editor. My husband Dave and I do a podcast called Linoleum Knife, and I also co-host a podcast on the Maximum Fun Network called Who Shot Ya? And I co-host a show on the Young Turks Network on YouTube called What the Flick.
Yeah. And that's how I first became aware of you. It was through What the Flick.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And the reason why we wanted to have Alonso on the program is because not only is he pretty supportive of Hallmark movies, which is not that common, I feel like, in the critic world, but he literally wrote the book on Christmas movies. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. I've always loved movies. I've always loved Christmas. So eventually, I guess I had to put my chocolate in my peanut butter. I wrote a book called Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. And it's kind of a film guide for Christmas movies. And I cast a pretty wide net in terms of, I include movies like Die Hard and Gremlins and The Lion in Winter and Metropolitan that people might or might not think of as Christmas movies. But if they have a significant connection to the season, then I put them in. I didn't do a lot of TV movies, or I did a handful of ones I think of as classics, like A Christmas Without Snow or The Gathering, but I did not go whole hog onto the Hallmark thing until a couple of years ago. I'm a relatively new convert. When we talk about the bracket this year, there were whole sections of it where I was like, I don't know these movies, I'm just gonna fake it.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the other reason why we thought of having you on is because we just finished the Merry Madness tournament, which I feel like your pick for best of the year actually really won, because I don't Rumble House Christmas, because I don't feel like it's really fair to have One Calls the Heart in the tournament, because they have such a fan base.
No kidding. Here's the crazy thing about this bracket. On the one hand, they're offering a cash prize if you predict how it's going to come out.
Right.
But on the other hand, you're supposed to be picking your favorites, and you can do 10 of these, but it's I think everybody is torn between, well, I like this movie, but I think more people are going to like this one. And I wish I had done more brackets, because I loved Bramble House Christmas, and I didn't take it very far in either of them. But I thought Switched for Christmas was going to go all the way, because that was the highest rated new one last year. But apparently the CCB fans did not turn out for the bracket.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised too, because I was not a big fan of Switch for Christmas. I thought it was pretty boring. But I thought it would do better, because we say CCB. It's actually her birthday today that we're recording this.
Oh, well.
So happy birthday, Candace. But she has 4 of the top 5 Hallmark Christmas movie premieres of all time. She has so she's she's very popular. So I thought it would do a little bit better as well.
Yeah, all of her stuff seemed to fall out of the bracket pretty quickly. I was sort of amazed.
Yeah. So
I'm not a fan personally. Just I still have memories of her on The View that annoy me. But
sure.
Nonetheless, I was giving her a boost in the bracket, because I thought, well, I'm an outlier. People like these movies with her.
Right. I don't know. For me, Switch for Christmas was just about 2 people planning parties, because everybody knew. Everyone knew but the hunky guys, that they were switched. So it was just watch. It was just boring to me. But they didn't monopolize off of the humor that you could have of a single girl all of a sudden taking care of teenagers, and a stay-at-home mom all of a sudden being a single girl. There was so much potential there, but It was just boring to me.
That was probably one of those ones where you want to bring in Alicia Witt or somebody who actually has a sense
Yes.
of humor.
Right.
I think that makes all the difference.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And uh, it was interesting. It was an interesting bracket. I was really surprised that the Finding Father and Engaging Father Christmases got out so quick because I did not like either of those movies. But I thought that they would go really far too. So that's what the bracket.
I'm more of a fan than y'all were on those, but yeah, I was kind of surprised those got knocked out, and I was also pleasantly surprised that like the Amnesia movies held on longer than I thought.
Yeah.
Both, Christmas to Remember and the bookstore one and the Mira Sorvino one. They start blurring together for me after.
Yeah, well, that's easy to do with Hallmark movies. But I wanted to ask. So, did your parents watch a lot of Christmas movies? Was that something? Was it something that you just grew a love for as a young kid?
Well, I grew up in the era of It's a Wonderful Life still being in the public domain. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid where it just was literally on every channel all the time at Christmas time because it was free. Any like rinky-dink local TV station could rent it if they wanted to. So you could finish the movie, change channels, and then catch it again midway through. So that I have a very distinct memory of during the holidays. And there were a handful of movies that my family would sort of like drop everything and watch, even if they came on in the middle of the night or something. And one of these movies that like my parents were just obsessed with and loved happens to be a Christmas movie, which is the original We're No Angels with Humphrey Bogart and Peter Ustinov.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of connections for that, but it was really more. I kind of thought of them on separate tracks. I mean, I grew up in a big family. I love Christmas a lot. It's my favorite time of year, and I've always kind of loved movies. And it really wasn't until I got older when I started working for newspapers. This is how old I am. I started working at newspapers. The holidays would roll around and I would get asked to make these lists of like, alternative Christmas movies or movies you might not think of as Christmas movies and blah, blah, blah. And after a while, I just thought there's maybe a book in this because there isn't a lot of, I mean, I'm not going to call my book scholarship, but there aren't a lot of film reference books that focus specifically on Christmas. And so, yeah, I just kind of went with it. It was a lot of fun to do. I'm still sure my neighbors thought it was bananas when it was July and they would hear like the end of A Christmas Carol over and over coming out of my windows, because I saw about 18 different versions.
Yeah.
I made my husband suffer a great deal through this entire ordeal.
Well, that's what I was going to ask if he or the rest of your family, if they get tired of watching all these Christmas movies.
He's the only one that gets subjected to them, and even still, I try to like wait till he goes to bed. He's really not a fan of the Hallmark stuff, but so I'm trying to be judicious about that.
That's really funny. Yeah, I guess it's a good thing that I'm single because it would probably be.
It's a lot to ask of someone else,
Yeah.
What I find hilarious is so now the network is running 4 movies today, and they're trying to hook it off of these were the big vote getters, and it's like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Like, you guys clearly planned this ages ago. You might as well have put it on the schedule because you were guessing that, again, Switch for Christmas and A Very Merry Mix-Up, which I thought was going to go further than it did.
Yeah.
Were going to be high vote getters. And it's like, no, because, TCM, other networks will actually do a thing where they leave a space blank or like somebody dies and they'll suddenly change the schedule. But the 4 they picked were so, if you look at the bracket, we're so all eliminated within the first couple of rounds. It's like, all right, y'all were just going to show these anyway.
Yeah, agreed. And people were kind of annoyed because there were a lot of people that wanted to see the When Calls the Heart movie because the Hardys, are really passionate about their show. And I completely agree. It's like, and I love Christmas, but Christmas in April.
Yeah, I like, July, it's become a phrase. You can get away with it. April is pushing it a tad. But, I haven't, do you subscribe to their, like, streaming service?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I looked through it and I was like, I haven't taken the plunge. But I was kind of surprised that there wasn't more Christmas stuff because I suspect there is, like, a secret segment of the population that would just watch that stuff all the time if it was...
Yeah. Oh, there definitely are, for sure. And that's why we want to try on our podcast to try to every so often kind of do something Christmas, kind of keep because it is definitely their bread and butter.
Oh yeah, no question. And they keep upping the number of originals every year, which
Yeah.
to me always feels like a dare. Like, oh, 34? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to break me, Hallmark.
Yeah, I mean, I forget we tallied because now of course, other networks are trying to get on the
Right.
game. You always had Lifetime, but they did like a measly, like 7, 8, 9 movies
Yeah.
last
I
year.
think they're up to 14 this year.
Yeah. And then there's the Up Network. There's the Netflix has now started.
Yeah, although it's funny, if you look at the credits of the Netflix ones, they're made by the same, like Brad
Mar Vista.
Provine. Yeah, well, the guy who is the president of the network, his production company also makes those Netflix ones.
Yeah.
So I have a theory that the Netflix ones somehow didn't, if you read interviews with people at the channel, they're very like, there's a definite guideline they have. Like,
Yeah.
they're never political, they're never too religious,
Yeah.
there's never any diseases, they have a very set path. And so I thought, okay, Prince for Christmas has the girl in the wheelchair, and somehow that was deemed not Hallmarky enough, and so it got booted to Netflix. And then Christmas Inheritance has Gay Best Friend, and you never see those on Hallmark either, so I figured that's why that one got sent to Netflix. But it's all coming from the same place.
Yeah, I think so. There's a company, it's like Mara Vista, I think it was called, in Canada, and you can totally tell these Hallmark movies that are made by Hallmark and the ones that are purchased by them. There's a definite quality difference.
You start seeing the same loft in Toronto a lot. Yeah.
Yes, the same gazebo.
Yes.
A lot.
Okay, now I meant to ask, you guys have seen that SNL thing, right?
Yes. The best ever.
Totally.
Yeah, one of our friends was like, we would totally watch these movies. And I'm like, we have watched these.
I was going to say, this isn't really satire.
Yeah. But I wondered, so do people like Christy Lemire give you like a really hard time about liking these movies?
It's, I think people think it's kind of cute, because since I've already sort of established myself as the Christmas movie guy, I think it's sort of like, well, if you can't have heroin, you can have methadone, and so I can only get so many real, major studio Christmas movies a year. In the meantime, I got to fill in the gaps with something else. They look a bit askance, but no one's too hot.
Oh, good. Because you and William Bibiami are the only critics I know who actually watch, or at least admit on Twitter.
Right. That's true. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of closeted ones out there.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Actually, Bibbs is the one who got me into them. He, a couple years ago, was in a car accident, and he had a knee injury and was laid up for like a month and a half. And he just watched Hallmark movies. And so we started talking about them, and he was really kind of parsing the difference between them and finding the similarities, but also the differences. And I don't know. At some point, I took the plunge, and it's just kind of fun to look at, as he likes to describe it, the movies where the villain is business.
Yeah. If they're talking on the cell phone in the car in the first scene, they're probably evil.
Bad news. If they don't decorate for Christmas or hire someone else to do it for them.
Yes.
It's funny because these movies used to be really snobby about real trees versus fake trees, but then Balsam Hill became a sponsor, and that's not brought up anymore.
Yeah. It's true. And I mean, it is amazing, like, how fast they make these movies. And like some of the ones that, like, there was one last year, Christmas Next Door, that because we did a Christmas preview in October, and it was like wildly inaccurate because so much changed by the time they aired. But the Christmas Next Door, I don't think it was even cast until the end of November. And,
and that's the Jesse Metcalf one?
Yes, right? Because the summary that was on the website for forever was all about, it was supposedly about this divorced dad who's getting his kids for the Christmas. And then it totally ended up being like this like hotshot motivational speaker guy or whatever, Jesse Metcalf, and it was just funny.
Well, I have a friend of mine, Michael Verratti, has written. He has a story credit on Broadcasting Christmas, and he's co-written some of the ones. And it's funny because he comes out of the world of low budget horror, which there's becoming a lot of crossover now, where like this is sort of the new like genre movie that you make on a dime really fast. So people like Fred Olen Ray, who used to crank out a lot of horror movies, are now cranking out like your Mar Vista level Christmas movies, but. He was telling me that it's very competitive every year with the networks who gets to actually shoot in the winter. and who has to fake it in July. And so I'm not surprised now that the Hallmark season starts at the end of October, that they're still making those movies like as the temperature starts dropping to just get them on the air by December. Like that totally scans. And somebody else who I know who works in TV said that even though these are 95, 98 minute productions, that they basically keep the same sort of scheduling and budgeting as an hour of TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's similar to like I guess similar to like an episode of One Calls the Heart, sort of, kind of a show like that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure in that, like in the case of that for Wishing Tree, they probably got a couple more days and a little more money or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, it's like, well, we got the cast, we have the town, it's pretty much all there.
They should have put more money into Wishing Tree. She had the atrocious, we called it the Wigmageddon. Her wig was so bad. So what do you think counts as a Christmas movie? You talked about a little bit how you had some non-traditional picks in your book, Batman Returns,
right,
Harry Potter, things like that. What to you counts as a Christmas movie?
I mean, I think it kind of, you take it on a case-by-case basis. Like, there are a lot of movies where, there's a Christmas tree or a scene at Christmas that's mainly just sort of used as an easy way to show the passage of time. Like, that's that's an easy marker, to let people know, oh, it's December now, But I think that, it's about whether the film itself kind of captures the stuff that people tend to want from Christmas movies, the sort of those redemption stories, those stories of kind of emotional repair with, a loved one. But I think you can have one scene at Christmas that if it's a memorable enough scene, then that counts for me. Like my go-to example is always John Waters' Female Trouble, which at the beginning of the movie, Divine very famously upends the Christmas tree on top of her parents when they don't give her the cha-cha heels that she asked for Christmas. And the rest of the movie has nothing to do with Christmas, but like everybody remembers that scene. You see that movie and it's like, one of them cha-cha heels, you remember it. And so that, for me, that's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
But if somebody tells me that it's not, then hey, I'm not going to argue the point. It's a personal thing. I mean, some movies are inescapably Christmassy. Like, I mean, the Hallmark stuff is very much trafficking in it's set at the season. It's about, couples getting together or families resolving their differences or whatever. But, in other times it becomes more of a, eye of the beholder situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I at least sometimes I feel like watching something different. So I don't know, put on Krampus or something like that. That's just like a little bit different, a little subversive.
I'm a big fan of those. A movie that came out last year called Better Watch Out that I thought was a really smart horror movie. I mean, that's the thing about Hallmark. Like, it's for me, it is it's I call it it's my I can't afford Xanax. They're comforting. Exactly what you're gonna get. You can do 2 or 3 other things while watching one and still follow the thread of it. But I can't imagine a diet of nothing else. I think I think you got to mix it up a little because otherwise it's just so light and so bland after a while. It's like I need a little spice in here. Some nutmeg in my dog.
It was a good thing that there was like Oscar season at the same time as like Countdown for Christmas, because I think I needed that like counterbalance.
Yeah, I'm going to spend 2 hours with The Shape of Water, and then I'll come back and watch Lacey Chabert make a gingerbread house.
Right. Yeah, we're hoping that they switch things up a little bit this year, because we're really getting kind of tired of some of the tropes, like the save the farm trope.
Yeah.
It's like we got to save the school or save the theater or save the
community center.
Do something different. Like a lot of people hated that Candace Cameron Bure one where she went back, where she goes forward.
The time travel one?
The time travel. It's like, at least they were trying something different. Like,
yeah, I think one of the things that I liked about Bramble House Christmas was that, usually the conflicts in these are so sort of contrived, like, oh, they were childhood sweethearts and then he went up to the big city or whatever. Like, you have this guy who has a genuine beef and really thinks that this other woman is terrible and somehow gouged his dying father for his money, and then discovering that, oh no, actually she's not a monster. Oh, and maybe I'm falling in love with her. Like, that was different. That felt like there were some stakes on the table and some genuinely kind of unpleasant emotions being bandied about, so I think here's the one thing, they obviously have a winning formula. I'm sure they don't want to mess with it too much, but every so often, like, we know what you're doing, so maybe do a little something else.
Yeah, think of your friendly neighborhood podcaster, please.
No, we have hours to fill here.
Yeah. So I was wondering, do you think that there will ever be a return of the feature film rom-com that we had, like the kind of movies that we used to have with like Reese Witherspoon, Sandra Bullock, Julia Roberts, that kind of thing? Like, we sometimes get some indies like Sing Street or something like that, but I don't know. I was so hopeful that Home would be kind of the one again? Home Again, yeah, that Reese did last year. I was hoping that would be a return to that kind of, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is kind of cyclical. The things come into fashion, they go out of fashion, and it's a sort of thing where a few come out and they don't make money, and then nobody wants to do one, and then out of the blue, somebody uses their clout and it becomes a hit, and it pays off. Like, I think we went through a period where the R-rated comedy was just sort of desperately terrible, but lately we've had, Girls Trip and Date Night, and now the Blockers coming out. So I think at some point there is an audience for that kind of movie, and I think that the return, they're relatively inexpensive to make, and they can do really well, your Pretty Womans and whatnot. So I hope so. I mean, I like a mix of things. I like to have, women get to be front and center in something where they're not saving the post, apocalyptic dystopia from itself or whatever. But yeah, no, I'm all for variety. I hope so. I mean, it's interesting. I think, I thought you were going to ask about sort of the return of the studio Christmas movie, and I think part of the fallout of the success of Hallmark is this notion of like, well, people can see this at home for free, which is, I think, why, again, the R-rated Christmas movie has become a thing. It's like, all right, what aren't you going to see on Hallmark? Well, Bad Santa 2, Better Watch Out, Bad Mom's Christmas, just Office Christmas Party, just because it is a clear alternative, and at some point, I think someone's going to maybe find a sweet spot of like, if we have like money and talent and things that these, somewhat cookie cutterish cable movies aren't going to do, then yeah, people are going to turn out for it. But at the moment, I suspect that because Hallmark is doing so, it kind of has cornered the market on this sort of thing with Lifetime and other TV people trying to get on board with it. I'm sure for the studios, like, well, we either have to go like hard, kid friendly, like The Star or whatever, or, like trot out the the profanities and the comedic violence and the horror or whatever, just because it's the niche that's not being fulfilled.
Yeah, because I don't know, I just, from my perspective, it's like, well, these movies are doing so well on Hallmark, so I would think that the studios would be like, oh, let's get in on this action. But you make a good point that like they don't think people will come to the theater.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, we've kind of gone back and forth with, is there a market for the adult drama? Or do studios want to make, spend the time and money to make, and, outside of like your, handful of requisite Oscar rated movies. And again, I think that's a place where TV has kind of filled in the gap. If we have, The Americans and Billions and these sort of interesting, complicated characters on television, then, the people are going to leave the house to see, the Avengers blow stuff up.
Yeah, because I really miss the feature film romantic comedy. I feel like we haven't had like a really successful, and there's a couple that I liked that didn't get much play. Like I really liked one with Hugh Grant called The Rewrite. I actually thought it was good, but there are a bunch that didn't get much of a release. But I don't know, it just feels like since Nora Ephron died, we have not had like a really fun, rom-com hit.
Nobody has filled those shoes. Did you see Love, Simon?
Oh yeah, that's true. There have been some high school ones, I guess.
Yeah.
That was really cute.
I know what you mean though. You want that sort of, you want that Nancy Meyers, sophisticated people with nice kitchens.
Yeah.
and clever banter.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we have like Mamma Mia 2 coming out this year.
That trailer, that trailer is just like, oh man. I mean, I try to go into every movie with hopes, with an open heart and open mind, but man, that trailer.
Well, it's got Cher, maybe Cher.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Cher as Meryl Streep's mother.
I never thought we'd see that.
Yeah.
I just hope they don't have Pierce Brosnan sing very much.
Oh man, yeah, I think we learned our lesson on that one the first time.
So, but I don't know. It's just something I really miss, and I would love to see back in the theaters. And
yeah, absolutely.
so
I am excited about. Have you heard about this British Christmas zombie musical called Anna and the Apocalypse?
I did hear about it because my friend went to some film festival and happened to see it.
Oh, Fantastic Fast, probably?
Yeah, my friend.
Yes,
One of my YouTube friends.
I've heard great things about it. I'm dying to see it. It's going to open. They just announced that it's opening December 1st, so there's that to look forward to.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the question I wanted to say is, what do you think is a classic Christmas movie that you think doesn't get enough love, and one that you think gets a little too much love?
Good question. Not enough love. I'm a big fan of the 1970 musical version of A Christmas Carol called Scrooge with Albert Finney.
Where he goes to hell?
Yeah. Where he goes to hell. Yeah, I find that one just really delightful. And I think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. You hear people will talk about Alistair Sim or George C. Scott or some of the other, kind of more notable Scrooges. But I think it's a really tight version. I was just talking to there's a podcast called Tinseltown that's all Christmas movies all the time, and he was saying that of these soundstage Londons, it's one of the best ones. It doesn't look stunning, it doesn't look like it's a block and a half. Like they really kind of invested in it. And I like Albert Finney a lot. I think the fact that he's playing young Scrooge and old Scrooge in the same movie is really effective. So that's one I always try and kind of push on people. As for too much love, I get why people like National Lampoon's Vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't love it. I think there's some fun things in it and some interesting things with that character from the first Vacation movie and all, but it's not one that I don't know that I've gone back and watched it again since I did the research for the book.
Yeah,
so not one of my go-tos. What about you?
Fair enough. So I think that the Disney Robert Zemeckis Christmas Carol doesn't get quite as much love as it deserves. It's very true to the book, and I know that style, the stop motion, not stop motion, motion capture. I know it's off-putting to some, and so that's a problem. But I don't know. I really like it. I like Gary Oldman in it. I think he's really good, and I like. I think Jim Carrey is actually a pretty good Scrooge. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
What do you think is overrated?
Well, I was not a big fan of We Are No Angels.
The first one, or okay?
Yeah, I don't know. Peter Ustinov is amazing, so he saves it. I don't know. It just wasn't my style of humor, and I was not a fan of The Ref. I'm just not that.
See, I love The Ref, but Kevin Spacey kind of ruined it for me. I didn't watch it last year, but it was the first time in a while that I hadn't. That's one that I dig out every year, but that's. Yeah. I get it. It's a very specific taste. So
yeah, I don't know. I just don't like movies where I hate all the people and they're just horrible people. It's just not my thing. But I understand the appeal. But yeah, in general, I mean, there's a lot of Christmas movies that I really don't like, but usually those are not that well liked. Like I hate Four Christmases so much. It was horrible.
I don't think anybody thinks of that one all that fondly. Although that is the movie where I realized that Katie Mixon is a national treasure.
She's the best. I love her show. Have you seen American?
Oh yeah. I watched American Housewife. It's great.
It's so funny. And I watched last year. I watched Pottersville.
Oh man, that was an epic disaster. Like I don't know what anybody was thinking on that one.
Like I hope the Riff Tracks guys are making a Riff Tracks of that. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
That is some low hanging fruit. But yes, absolutely, they should have their way with it because that movie. I I read about it, and I was like, huh? And I didn't know it was going to Netflix, so I rented it because
Oh, no.
committed I am to this genre, and I just spent the whole thing just like, what am I even looking at? And it's great cast, but the script is so misguided. But yeah, that movie's epic bananas.
It was so bizarre. I was just like, it is kind of maybe a little so bad it's good because all these connections to It's a Wonderful Life thrown into this weird comedy with furries, and I was just like,
it's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
I was not that crazy about The Man Who Invented Christmas, which I thought I would, because I really liked the book. It's a fascinating story, but the movie to me I felt like, well, it's never, for one thing, it never explains the title. Like, they don't lay out the groundwork that Christmas was kind of a marginal whatever holiday, and then after the publication of A Christmas Carol, that sort of really brought it as to a larger thing in the culture. So that is missing. And then I talk about your soundstage Londons like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really bright sun through those windows. Even when they're complaining about the fog, you're like, are you not looking at what's happening here?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I think that's fair. It's fair. I think maybe it was a contrast to some of the Hallmark movies that week that I saw. Maybe I don't know.
But Arthur Christmas is another, I think, sort of underrated one. I think is slowly finding its audience as years go by.
Yes, that's a really good one. I love Arthur Christmas. It's one of my favorite Aardman films.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no question.
So
I want
good.
that sweater.
Yes. Yeah, I really like that one. And I love, most people love Home Alone, but Home Alone was the first movie to ever really make me laugh in my life. I was, very independent kid. So the whole idea of going to the store by yourself and doing the laundry and him figuring out how to stop these thugs. And that was just the coolest thing in the whole world. And so I have huge nostalgia for it. And it's just one that I love.
That was an interesting sort of revelation for me when I was doing the book, because I never saw it.
Oh, really?
I was in my 20s when it came out, and I just, by that point, I'd even sort of given up on John Hughes. So I just didn't, and it became this giant phenomenon, obviously, but I just never got around to it. And so when I was first putting the book together, my agent told me to write the first chapter, which is movies aimed at kids. He said, because he thought that was sort of the best selling point to the parents or whatever. So I was like, well, I guess it's time to watch Home Alone now. And what surprised me is that, I think the thing that people most remember from that movie is sort of the very violent slaps.
The booby traps, yeah.
Yeah, I found a little which is actually kind of what I liked about Better Watch Out. They sort of take the idea of that sort of thing and take it to the nth degree. But I was surprised at how kind of moving it was, his relationship with the old guy next door, and the way that it's almost a sort of Twilight Zone thing of I wish my family was gone. Now great, that happened. And it's one of the sort of monkey's paw wishes, that kind of backfires on you. I thought that was all rather lovely.
It was so sweet. Yeah. And also just John Candy, hilarious. Love him in that. And I don't know, his parents are the worst, but I just love the movie. It's just very nostalgic for me. And even I think it's one of John Williams' more underrated scores.
It is a good one. And it I've seen it pop up in sort of holiday mixes or at malls where they'll play a bit of it between carols, or it's it fits. My friend Louis Fertel tweeted once, I can't relate to Home Alone because I don't know what it's like to take Catherine O'Hara for granted.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I also love While You Were Sleeping. And I think that I would say that would be an underrated one for me. I just love the dialogue, and I love the huge chemistry. And so that's
you talk about wanting rom-coms to come back. I do miss peak Sandra Bullock.
Yes, so much. I know she got her Oscar. Come back to us.
Yeah, well, we got Ocean's 8 coming. I'm hoping that's going to be fun,
and I'm really excited about that. So last question that I have for you is, what advice would you give to new podcasters like us?
Gosh, I hopped into this thing knowing so little. I luckily, my friend Gray Drake had been doing a show called Popcorn Mafia, and she had me on as a guest, and that was the first time I even really understood what a podcast was. And then, I wound up starting mine because I had a couple of different TV gigs, and the both shows got canceled like within a month of each other. So I was like, all right, I need a thing that only I can cancel.
Yeah.
And I think figure out what makes your voice different and how you stand out amidst the thousands of podcasts that are out there. I mean, I think you guys have a very targeted, niche sort of area of interest, and that's a good thing. I think the more specific you can be, the better. Obviously, it has to be something that you can still do an infinite number of shows about while at the same time being very laser focused, I mean, there are a ton of movie review podcasts out there in the world, which I'm certainly aware of, but there aren't any that are done by, an actual married couple that are both film critics, let alone two dudes. So
right.
that's our bread and butter. And I think don't be afraid to let your show sort of organically become what it becomes. Like we originally were very sort of like it's going to be a strict 20 minutes, and we're just going to talk about movies, and then at some point we allowed ourselves to kind of ramble a bit, and our listeners like the rambling. Like that's one of the things that they're as interested in hearing us talk to each other about who's doing the dishes or whatever as they are about us getting to the week's movies. So this isn't NPR. You don't have to have these beats and these blocks of stories and your music beds or whatever. Like don't feel like you have to have all that stuff. Just do it organically and be yourself and let what comes out come out and kind of figure out what if there's a show in it or not.
Yeah. Well, that's really great advice. I mean, I think the thing I just try to remember is that like it's a lot of work, but just try to keep it fun. That it's
God, yeah. Because no one's doing this for the money. It better be fun.
That's right. So, and it's so fun to be able to, it's a shame that Amber wasn't able to be here, but because we have just so much fun together getting to work on, a creative, because most of the time we just spend in front of our computer screens all day for our jobs. Right. And so it's nice to have a creative outlet where even just things like designing the thumbnails and stuff like that. Like I'll send one to her and I'm like, look at this, I designed this.
Do y'all have merch yet? I want merch.
Oh, we do have merch. We have a Hall Stars T-shirt. A baseball T-shirt. So I'll tag you in the link.
Okay.
And we are also doing a giveaway right now of Alonzo's book. So if you're listening, I'll have a link in the description section to enter the giveaway of Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas, because it's definitely a resource that every Hallmarkie needs to have for sure. And we were both talking that if you do a volume 2, it should be a TV movie volume.
If I can, if I can sell enough of these, then maybe that'll happen. And I would be down. Like I've had a good time going down this rabbit hole. So I could go down all the previous years that I missed. And if you don't win the book from Hallmarkies, it is available at like Amazon and all the places, and as a Kindle.
Yes, we will have a link, and the giveaway, anybody can enter, because even international, because you can just do the ebook. And so go check that out. And I'll have a link down if you want to just flat out order it, and because it's really good. And if you need we can be your resource. We can be your. We can take the bullet for you. Maybe that's
good to know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. This was a real honor and treat for me.
Oh, well, this was a delight. I think you guys do have a lot of fun doing this show, and I'm glad it exists. And thanks for thinking of me.
Oh, no. Hopefully we can have you on again, maybe closer to the season, or maybe in Christmas in July or whatever. We'd love to talk to you and get Amber in, because Amber was very excited because she is like a Ben Mankiewicz fanboy. She wanted to talk to you about that.
Excellent. I'll dish all the dirt I got.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Well, how can people find you online, social media?
Well, let's see. I'm A Duralde on Twitter, ADURALDE, and then my show is at Linoleum Cast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I think also at Who Shot Ya Pod and at TYTWTF on Twitter.
Great. Awesome. We'll have links for all of that in the description below. And thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye. And make sure you're following the podcast on social media or Hallmarkies Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And this weekend on Hallmark Channel, they are having just one movie on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. The Aurora Teagarden movie is this weekend, but nothing on the Hallmark regular channel. So one of those weeks. And then, but we do have a new episode of One Calls the Heart this weekend. And our podcast this week, we're covering the Hallmark Spring Fever royal movies, Royal Matchmaker, Royal Hearts, and Once Upon a Prince. So I hope you'll enjoy that. And we will have our When Calls the Heart recap show, When Calls the Hallmarkies recap show on Thursday with Ruth Hill. So make sure you check that out. And thanks so much again to Alonzo for joining us. And you can follow Amber at Amber Brainwaves on Twitter. And you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews on iTunes and YouTube. And thanks again. And we will talk to you all later. Bye.